people's lives had been changed so fast.
And Leon's getting larger.
Great moment to burst in, babe. Levity during a very serious topic. To me, was really... Hey y'all, JP McFarland here, and you have meandered on back to the McCripple channel, or perhaps stumbled upon it for the first time. Either way, I'm so stoked you're here. I've always thought that my first video would mainly be a warning about brain aneurysms and their prevalence and preventability and their danger at any age, and it is, minus the first little intro video I did. And since filming that first video, I turned 36 and celebrated my 16th anniversary, which is why I have even more lines on my forehead now. And my front tooth had chipped too. Oh, it doesn't seem like it's that nice. It's not that nice. Anyway, but thankfully for my wonderful best friend and her wonderful dentist, they fixed it for me. So I no longer look like a bumpkin from Bumblescum. So that's good for all of us. Still falling apart though. Anyway, if you watch that first little intro video I did, you'll understand why I call it my anniversary more than my birthday. A quick disclaimer, this video is probably going to be a little longer because it's a really important topic that could save your life or the life of someone you love. But if it gets too long, I'll divide it into 2 parts so you don't have to watch it all at once, because I really appreciate it when people do that. Anywho, as you may or may not know, my first brain aneurysm hemorrhaged on the morning of my 20th birthday, which was June 19th, 2005. I guess I should do a video about what happened, like the whole story. Would anyone be interested in seeing that? Let me know in the comments and I can make one. Anyway, so that's why I consider my birthday my anniversary more than my birthday. That aneurysm was described to my brother in layman's terms, i.e. not metric, as being about 2 inches. When my brother said 2 inches long, the doctor said no around. And giant aneurysms are described as anything over 1 inch. And then my second brain aneurysm hemorrhaged 2 months later. I actually just celebrated the 16th anniversary of that one too. It hemorrhaged late in the night of August 24th while I was still in the hospital with my skull played out, thankfully. That saved my ass because all we heard from the doctors was that one was just worse. And my mom said when she saw the CT scans, there was so much black on your brain, it's amazing you can do anything but sit there and drool on yourself. Although, to be fair, I do that a lot, and I've done it a couple times today already. Still, the fact that my first stroke happened on my 20th birthday and the second was 2 months later, or even that there was a second at all, has blown away many people who've stopped to ask me why I have a cane. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, "You're so young to have a cane, what happened?" Which is really sweet of them to still say. I guess eventually I'll get old enough that no one will say that. But one of the people who had stopped me was a man who had a daughter about my age and who never in his wildest dreams thought that brain aneurysms could be a danger to her. Neither did my mom. And so that's why I always like the chance to share my story, because it lets people know that they are a danger at any age. Most shocking to me was the 15-year-old boy who died abruptly while helping his parents move a piece of furniture. Shortly after I got out of the hospital, one of his parents had worked with the shrieky-voiced piece of human garbage with whom we were living upon my release from the hospital because we had lost our home right when I got hurt. I could not believe that a kid 5 years younger than me was killed instantly by something I'd just survived twice. Especially considering he had to be healthier than me. I'd been chain smoking 2 to 3 packs a day and binge drinking the past few years of my life, not to mention being 30 pounds overweight. Oh, and taking birth controls and trim spa. And a fair warning, birth control pills carry a risk of stroke all on their own. One of my first physical therapists had known a girl whose stroke was caused entirely by birth control pills. So it's something to be aware of, considering so many of us take it at some point in our lives. And come to think of it, there might be a stroke risk associated with all hormone therapy. I'm not really sure, just a thought. But when that poor kid died, that was the first time I ever felt survivor's guilt. And it's happened many times since then, sadly, because too often people don't survive subarachnoid hemorrhages, which is what a hemorrhage brain aneurysm is called. And despite their prevalence in my own social circle, too many people seem to still be unaware of them. And those of us that do survive feel it's our duty to raise awareness as much as we can. I don't want you to be one of the cases that leads to me feeling survivor's guilt. More for your sake than mine. So please, please do me a favor. Talk to your family. Find out if anyone in your family has ever suffered a stroke, especially if they've ever suffered a hemorrhaged brain aneurysm, or hemorrhaged or not if they've suffered a brain aneurysm. Especially, and if anyone has, especially a close relative, you really need to be scanned. They're believed to be congenital, meaning you're born with them, and they are hereditary, meaning they run in families. My grandma had actually had a brain aneurysm hemorrhage when she was in her 50s. And if someone had given me this information when I was a teenager, I could have talked to a doctor and gotten scanned, and there's no guarantee that they would have found the 2 aneurysms, but with as large as they'd grown by my 20th birthday, they could have. So there, I'm giving you the information I wish I would have had when I was younger. Something I didn't even know about: brain aneurysms are a real danger at any age. Don't believe me? I know a little girl who suffered a brain hemorrhage at 5 years old a couple of years ago. And I have survivor brothers and sisters in our Facebook group who had their hemorrhages when they were kids or in their teens or 20s. They are a very real danger at any age. So please, please, please talk with your immediate and extended family members and discuss with your doctor whether they think that you could be at risk of suffering a subarachnoid hemorrhage. If there is a significant risk, you should be scanned. But every person is different. Every person has different risk factors and genetic backgrounds. All I can tell you is what I've learned. And then you need to take that info to your doctor. Only a doctor is going to know what's best for you. I gotta say though, given the medical advances we have today to prevent brain aneurysms from hemorrhaging once they're found, I really don't see why more people aren't proactively scanned these days just to check for existing brain aneurysms or weaknesses. Considering what's at stake and what you could lose, which for me was the use of half of my body, part of my vision, the ability to rollerblade, run, play the left hand of Furry Lease or any other song on my piano, and most painfully, the ability to ever ride a dirt bike or race a car again. My 2 greatest loves and passions from my previous life. If I had had the opportunity to save myself from losing all that, I would hope I would have jumped at it. From what I've researched, I've learned that the radiation you're exposed to during one CT scan or CAT scan isn't really a large enough amount to really harm you. And I've had a ridiculous amount of CT scans and CT angiograms over the years during my 134 days in the hospital and all the years since. And the latter of which, CT angiograms, are where they inject dye or contrast into you so that they can see the blood vessels better. There are a lot of us who've had more CT scans than we could ever count because of brain aneurysms, so you should be fine getting scanned once or twice just to make sure everything's okay. But I am not a doctor. I've gone to school long enough to be one, but I suck at biology. Being a doctor was never in the cards for me. I can't give you medical advice for you. I can just tell you what I've learned the hard way and give you the information I wish I'd had before I got hurt. Your doctor is way smarter than me and far less stoned, so they're gonna know what's best. You could have a medical condition that makes a CT scan dangerous, or you could have a severe allergy to the contrast they use for CT angiograms. Maybe an MRI or PET scan, whatever the hell that is, would be better for you. I don't know. I have very vague memories of being in an MRI machine once in my earlier days of my hospital stay when my brain was still felt very fuzzy and soft, which is weird, but it's the best word I've ever been able to come up with to describe what a healing brain feels like. Soft, and it hurts like hell. Anyway, I don't remember anything about the MRI except hearing the lady who kept saying, "Jessica, can't move your head, remember? Jessica, you moved your head again, remember?" I was so doped up and always exhausted from all the meds and the trauma to my brain, so I kept passing out, and every time I did, I moved and messed up the scan. Anyway, as I said, you really need to talk to your family about your family's medical history and discuss everything you learn with your doctor. Tell them what you know or have learned from here or wherever, and you wonder if you should get scanned as a precaution. They'll know based on your health, your medical history, your family history, and any risk factors whether getting scanned is a good idea for you and which scan would be best. But two important facts to make note of are brain aneurysms are more prevalent in women than men, and African Americans are also at a higher risk for brain aneurysms and subarachnoid hemorrhages. That doesn't mean that men don't have them. A friend of mine's grandfather was killed by one. And we have many survivor brothers in our Facebook group, including the man who started it. And that also doesn't mean that being white or any race means that you're out of harm's way either. I mean, case in point here. We have survivor brothers and sisters from all ages and races and genders in our group. Aneurysms can hit anyone in any race or gender at any age. But knowing what you just learned after you've spoken with your family about your medical history, if you're a woman, I'd really urge you to talk to your doctor about your risk for brain aneurysms. Same if you're African American, especially if you have a family history of strokes, hemorrhagic or otherwise. And if you're African American and a woman, I really can't urge you enough to talk to your doctor about your risk. Please call them today or tomorrow. For your sake and the sake of all those who love you. I actually read a story that really stuck with me a few years ago about an African American woman who was killed by a brain aneurysm. I think her name was Broadway. It was so sad because the article had this beautiful picture of her with this big family, all her kids and grandkids and everyone together, and I just thought about how that whole family and all those lives were changed so fast. Their matriarch was just taken in the blink of an eye. Brain aneurysms can change everything so fast. That's why I want y'all to know what I didn't, so you can see if scanning is a good option for you. And if I could tell that woman's family members, I would tell them that they should get scanned, especially the girls. Because they know it runs in their family now, sadly. At worst, a brain aneurysm will take you from your loved ones. And you've got a 50 to 60% chance of that every time. At best, you might come out with your original personality and most of your cognitive capabilities, but lose a lot of your physical ones like I did. Or you could keep all of your physical capabilities and lose your memory and some of your cognitive capabilities like my friend Kim did. Kim is by no means slow. Well, we're both a lot slower than we used to be. She's one of my sister-in-law's best friends and has been one of mine since my sister-in-law and brother got married. Many years before we got hurt. She's still with it and everything. Hell, she's raised 2 boys through all this. She's tougher than shit. But she did lose a lot of memories, and it really makes her sad. Fortunately, that sweet little 5-year-old I told you about, who suffered a hemorrhage a few years ago, is doing beautifully and can run, rock climb, swim, and keeps up with her classmates academically. Gosh, she must be like already 9 or 10 by now. I should check on her. Age is often on your side when you suffer a stroke young. That's what all the doctors and nurses and staff always told me in the hospital. They called me a walking miracle, which many of my survivor brothers and sisters have also heard. Because my hemorrhages were so bad, they really should have killed me, or done even more damage than they did. At Memorial Hermann Hospital, which is a level 1 trauma center in Houston, they were used to seeing them kill people. And my caseworker once told me that she loved it when I came back to visit because, quote, we don't get many happy endings out of here. Ooh, I had to eat something, I was getting shaky. Anyway, they weren't used to people coming out of level 3 comas, and not even a medically induced one. I was already in the coma before I got on the life flight. It was actually my posturing limbs that were what told the EMTs I needed serious help, so they called for the life flight. And that's why they warned my family at every turn that I was probably going to die. And when I not only survived, but managed to come out the same sick, twisted weirdo I always was, they said that if I hadn't been so young, I probably wouldn't have come out as well, if at all. And because that little girl I was talking about was only 5, she has made a truly miraculous comeback and is getting to grow up and live like a regular kid, like all kids should get to do. Except this kid has to have lots of brain scans and doctor appointments. But here's what's messed up. This is why I no longer consider brain aneurysms rare, although statistically they technically are, and the little box that pops up on Google when you look them up will tell you they are. Here's why I don't believe they're as rare as we like to think they are.